back to another episode of Inside Access Control, sponsored by SIA. Very excited today to have a guest, Dave Sylvester. He's from 3SE Corp. Dave, thank you very much for taking the time to join.
Thanks for the opportunity, Lee. That's always one of my favorite topics.
Of course, absolutely. So thought it would be a good idea to have you come on board. You and I have been exchanging some notes and talked a little bit. Very interesting, your perspective on what's happening, seeing that, everybody has some turmoil currently right now, especially in the channel. And I know a lot of people have a lot of interest in actually what they believe the impacts would be on the channel. So thought you'd be a perfect person to come on to talk about that. So if you don't mind, why don't you give a little bit of background of who you are and what you do, and then if we can, we'll jump into sort of the channel impact.
Yeah, I've been in the physical security space now for 23 years plus. I actually started with Ingersoll Rand Security Technologies, who's now Allegiant, in Europe when they made a purchase of a company called Newman Tonks in Europe. So I ran their European business for a few years, came back and worked in a variety of roles in the Americas, from both the residential and the commercial side. I headed up the commercial selling organization and then later became the president of the Americas. I went to work for Roper Technologies for a few years with a portfolio company of a whole bunch of different technology companies, and then came back into the industry with ASSA ABLOY and ran was the president of their door security solutions group, and really was with the challenge of trying to get the mechanical side of the business to play well with the electronic side of the business. And that's an interesting dynamic that's out in the channel today. And then for the past 6 years, I've been on my own with 3SE, which is really a boutique M&A company. I work totally in the security space. My clients are sellers of commercial door and hardware businesses and security integration businesses. And it's been a very interesting time. There's a lot of dynamics going on in the channel that are going to continue. Like there's some basic dynamics that are going to continue for the future.
Absolutely, I agree with you. So why don't we jump into those? What are some of the highlights that you believe we're going to start to see even more of?
Manufacturing side of the business has gone through a lot of consolidation. ASSA ABLOY and Allegiant and Dormakaba and all have really been very aggressive for the last 10 years. And what's happening right now, we're at the start of what I think is going to be a 10-year run of dynamic changes in the channel. It's the security integrator side has been at it for quite a while now. Private equity getting interested in the business, and they've backed Convergent and Securidyne, and then ADT has been very active. And there's already been a lot of changes and consolidation in the security channel, and now it's starting to happen also in the commercial door and hardware distribution side of the business. The main dynamic is still demographics. The real driver for 90% of the changes in the market are owners that are hitting that 3 to 5 year window of retirement, and there's a lot of them still in that situation. So that's going to really be the main driver.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting. I was talking to somebody recently about that. As our industry is relatively a bit older, if you would, and there's probably some people that we're on a 10-year sort of high rise of things are going great, and then all of a sudden probably wish they would have sold maybe a year ago or even 6 months ago, but can't go back in time. So but with that, I guess, so on the consolidation side, I understand it from, another door company, if you would, buying another door company, or another dealer buying another dealer. What's your views on the industry maybe verticalizing even more through this? Like, I'll give you why I ask. One of the interesting things that have come out of this is the dealer channel and the integrator side. They've been somewhat of, I would say, a necessary evil, if you would, perceived a lot from the manufacturing end, right? Now, though, they went from that to being what is labeled as essential. And I think that, if anything, this has highlighted the fact of how important they are on that sort of last mile of product actually getting out onto sites and getting installed. So there's this appreciation that I think they're having a moment, if you would, that hopefully they leverage. But even if they don't, I'm just curious, as more businesses that weren't control of their destiny, are they going to start looking, do you think, at how they get closer to the customer? Or is it going to go the other way too, where some of those companies that might be bigger, are they going to start to look going upstream as well, and we start to see more consolidation that way?
I think it's going to be one. I think it's going to be really interesting, but I think it's going to take on several characteristics. Um, a couple of things going on. We have both talked about the Division 8 and Division 28 coming together, and the fact that we have really been on a campaign for years and years to try to get the more traditional mechanical door and hardware companies to get on board with the access control, and that's happening. Clearly, the market leaders out there are embracing both technologies. Some of the Anytime that I have a security integrator that I'm representing, I'll have I'll have several door and hardware companies looking at them. So they're very interested in getting there. So I think you're going to see some of that vertical or expanded capability. So one of the drivers is adding the capability. If I can pick up a region, or if I can pick up another business that brings that whole skill set um, to the table, then that's very attractive. The other thing I think it's going to be real interesting is it's back to your point on the essential business. Right when all this COVID-19 hit, there were several deals that were in the works that were particularly private equity backed, that they kind of hit the brakes. They pumped the brakes and said, hey, we're just going to stop here and see what happens for a little while. And they're coming back online now. Just in the last couple of weeks, I think we felt like the world is not going to end. They're asking to get re-engaged in the process, but I think if the outside money, private equity or whatever, was not interested in the security space before, it's going to be even more interested in it now, because we're going to see new business opportunities that drive growth. And we may have a rocky road here later on down later in the year, early next year, as some of the backlogs start to burn off. But we're going to see the physical security industry be just more dynamic and be right back into a growth mode.
Yeah, no, I agree with you on that end, and I see that. So, if you would, do you have any advice, or what do you recommend if you're a company that is looking to do something, or whether it's being the acquirer or the acquiree? Any recommendation currently now, like what should they be doing?
One thing I'm always counseling the businesses to have the mindset that run the business like you're going to sell it, whether you intend to or not. It does change the behavior, and the fact that you look at your financials differently. You're way more engaged financially. I know that when I get work through the process and to bring a business to market, and we put the confidential information together, the owners will always say they know more about their business now than they ever knew. So it changes the way you look at a business. And I think whether you want to sell it or not, uh, run it like you want to sell it. And then the second one is to particularly the folks that are considering a sale. You need to have it's a 5-year window, really, because it might take a year to actually get a deal done. And the buyers would like the owner to stay on for 2 or 3 years at least. So, if you think an exit strategy is in your 4 or 5 years time frame, it's time to get on with the process. And I think I think that for one, all the people that I worked with last year in a deal in 2019 have come back and said they think they're brilliant for selling it last year. But I think this was a bump, and I think 2020 may have an asterisk with some of the financials, but I think it's going to continue to be a great market for both buyers and
I
sellers.
agree with you. So on that positive note, I think I'll leave you on that. So if people want to get a hold of you to find out more about your services and follow what you do, what's the best way to get a hold of you?
My email is dsylvester@3secorp.com. And same thing, my website's 3secorp.com. So either way, you can get a hold of me, and love to work with you or just talk about what's going on in the industry.
Perfect. So thank you. I really appreciate you sharing your insight and the words of encouragement. And I think you're spot on that this is the way that the market's going to go, and people need to. I think the advice of running your business like you're going to, of having the financials and all of these sort of I's and T's, I's dotted and T's crossed, so that you can do that, is a good idea. So thank you for spending the time and telling us about it.
Thanks, Lee.
Of
Take
course.
care.